welcome back. We're in Module 5 now. Hard to believe, it's crazy how fast semesters go. But Module 5, in Born to Build, we're going to talk about the fourth key, which is building a team. But before we talk about that, let's talk about some of the other things that are going to happen in this module. There's a couple of videos on intellectual property that you'll want to watch. Obviously, I think in the world of entrepreneurship, understanding how intellectual property works and what the ownership rights are and how the system works, how the laws work, I think that's important to know. And so that's kind of our additional or supporting material for this module. Also, you are taking the Entrepreneurial Leadership Instrument, and that's an assessment that Dr. Goldsby here on campus and I developed, and we've tested it probably the last several years. Always a work in progress, but we feel like it's unique and that it measures your entrepreneurial leadership style. Like, how do you approach an entrepreneurial venture or project or corporate entrepreneurial project or venture, whatever. And so different types of entrepreneurial leadership styles, artists, scientists, evangelists, builders. So we think it's a great tool, and it sheds a lot of light on how you would lead a venture, so we like that. So just make sure you take that and you watch the video on that, and you do the assignments, but then you're also prepared for some quiz questions on that instrument and what it measures. Born to Build, building a team. This is so important. Like, I can't overstress the importance in entrepreneurship and building ventures with team building and building a team that can be effective. This fallacy of a lone entrepreneur, of a lone person building a venture, just isn't reality. It really does take a village. It takes a good, well-rounded team to produce something of worth. The research out there is pretty clear on this. It shows that ventures that are started by teams are much more sustainable and successful than ones started with just a solo founder. So it doesn't need not a lot of explanation. It makes sense. The reality of any kind of venture, anything you undertake that's bigger than you have to have humility. You have to realize that you don't have all of the talents, which is where I really think BP10, hopefully you're starting to see this semester, as it doesn't mean that you're bad at things, it just means it's not where you're at your best. And you have to have that humility to say, I don't have it all, and even if I did, even if I was great at all 10 of those things, and there are a few crazy exceptions out there, like maybe Walt Disney, who was good at maybe all 10 or close. You still don't have the energy and time, and you're just one person to do it all. You just can't do it all. And that's something that the best entrepreneurs realize, and they do build good teams around themselves. So very important. It really is based on combination of the team's talents is what leads to success. I want to bring back into play a little bit here. If you remember from your BP10 results, based on the unique combination of an ordering of your talents, and remember, talents, we're talking about psychological talents. When you add experience, skills, and knowledge to those psychological perspectives or psychological talents, there's real power in that. And I'll give you an example in just a minute. But the combination of those talents leads to your alpha builder being either a rainmaker, so someone who's a really good spokesperson, evangelist, salesperson for a venture, a conductor, someone who's a really good manager of people and resources and systems, or an expert, kind of speaks for itself, but someone who's a learner and they deep dive into like industry trends and technical things and things that relate to the business. And you really need a good blend of all three of those to successfully start and build a venture. So a couple of examples that come to mind for me is if you think about the early days of Disney, so if you go back to the early 20th century, Walt Disney was really the rainmaker. He was the passionate one. He was the evangelist. He was selling this. He was the spokesperson for Disney Studios. And his brother Roy Disney was really the conductor. He was the manager. He was the financial manager. He worked with the people. Was Walt a conductor too? Yeah, but Roy kept it on track in that regard. Expert, again, Walt had some expertise behind him too. He could learn things really quickly and deep dive like into animation or something like that. But he really relied on a guy named Ubi Iwerks, who was really his resident expert animator. So that's one example. Another example that comes to mind, just to get off of what we think of as a traditional entrepreneurial venture, would be my friend Rich, who's the baseball coach here at Ball State. He's really the rainmaker. I mean, he's the spokesperson. He's the evangelist for Ball State baseball. Very passionate about it. It comes through. People respond to that. The conductor would be his assistant coach. They're managing all the operations. They kind of built a system, and they're managing that system, and they're in charge of making sure things are running smoothly. And as a good example, he's in a transition on that position, and so he's looking for someone who can run his program, who can run the system, let's say, who can manage all those things, and build relationships with the players and those types of things. And then the expert is Dustin, his pitching coach. I mean, he's an expert in that area, and he brings expertise that maybe Rich didn't have, or Rich has learned, but maybe he didn't. A good example would be like they have a machine that measures spin rate and some real technical things with pitching. So Dustin has that expertise, so he's the expert in that 3-team organization. But you can see where they have a well-rounded team, which describes and helps you understand why they're successful. So pretty neat to think of it in that way. So really my view is that you can be entrepreneurial in any venture or any line of business or anything you're doing, and I think that's a good demonstration of that. I mentioned earlier that when we talk about talent in this course, we are talking about psychological talent, your psychological perspective. It's the things that come natural in you. There's a personality piece to this for sure. It's the things that motivate you, that fulfill you, that you can learn really quickly, that you have passion for behaving in that way, and they lead to your best performance. So and then when you add experience, specific skills, and knowledge to that psychological talent, now you have a real position of strength. You have something very unique, and if you didn't get that, I would rewind this back and I would watch this again, because it's so critical. When you add experience, skills, and knowledge to your psychological talent, your psychological perspective, the thing that gets you excited to get out of bed every day, you have real position of strength and power, and you can really make a difference in the world when you have that. Really important concept. And I'll use selling talent as an example, okay? You're just naturally, if you have that, if you're dominant in that, you have the ability to just sell, to get people to come along with you, to evangelize, to really get people excited about your venture and your vision and what you're doing. When you add in experience, so the more you sell and the more you are the spokesperson for your company, the better you get with that kind of raw talent. When you add knowledge to it, like space expertise, like technical expertise, or knowledge, like I was talking about with the pitching coach, then okay, when you add that to a selling ability, think about how much better you can sell when you have knowledge behind it. And then when you add skill, an example of that might be just database skill, database management. If you're a salesperson and you keep good records of who you communicate, when you communicate with them, what's important to them, what drives them, you learn how to document all that and refer back to it, that's a skill. So we're adding skill to the selling talent. Makes us more productive, more effective. And then, like I mentioned, practice. Just experience itself makes that talent better in you. So I hope that makes sense, because sometimes I think I see this a lot in the corporate world when we go do training, is, and I saw it with our employees too, is they get confused with psychological talent. They want to take it right to a skill and apply it to a skill. And it's like, well, that's not really how, it does kind of work that way, but what we do is we add skills, knowledge, experience to those psychological talents, basically. So I hope you're grasping that, because it's a really important concept, and when you do, it's really going to help you out down the road. Last thing I want to talk about in relation to this reading, this chapter for this module, is team makeups. When you have really homogeneous teams, so teams of people that have the same talents, people are going to get along really well because they have the same perspective. The problem is you have limited perspective when it comes to cognitive and functional aspects of the business. So you really lack that cognitive and functional diversity that's going to help the business thrive. You also have kind of limited functional or like business perspectives, talent perspectives, and it could be just from a human resource standpoint you're lacking. So heterogeneous teams perform better. They may not always get along as well, but that's good because you have kind of perspectives kind of testing each other, and there's checks and balances there. So that's really good. Another thing I want to point out is that it's really important that each team member understands, and it's very clear to them, how their role points back to your vision for the company and the mission for the company. It's really important, because if they have that, they'll be engaged in the work and what you're doing and what you're trying to do, and they will use their talents. So it's a really good, and they'll add skill and experience, right, and practice to it and knowledge. So it's really important. Two talents we're looking at for this module are delegator. And let me first say, I'll start off by saying, it might not be what you think. It doesn't mean that a great delegator isn't someone who just pushes work off. In an immature, raw, undeveloped talent of delegator, that would be true. You just push work off, push responsibility off. But a really mature delegator talent would be someone who gives responsibility to others, someone who provides opportunity for others through different work challenges, like, hey, I want you, Lindsay, to take this project and run with it. You're in charge of it. You're giving them opportunity. You're giving them responsibility. It could also be through giving them growth opportunities, like through training or resources, like a library of resources that you would provide as an organization that could kind of for self-help, if you will, but it could be on sales, it could be on marketing, it could be on accounting, things that they say, I'm a little deficient in this, and you're giving them growth opportunities, or you're sending them to a workshop or a conference or a training session, those kinds of things. People high in delegator talent are also able to spot talent and develop that talent and use that talent, place it effectively. Again, you talk about fulfillment. When people are doing what they're wired to do, they're happy and they do a good job and they're engaged in the organization. Whether it's a for-profit venture, a non-profit, a social venture, whatever, a corporate situation, doesn't matter. So that's a little bit about delegator. Great gift, because if you think about a growing company, one person or a small group of people cannot do it all. Why not tap into your people? You're paying them to be there, and they want you to tap into their talent. The other one is determination. And I like what the book says. They use the term, people with high in determination talent have a high adversity quotient. I like that. They can just grind through. They have a drive that when things aren't going well, they're just going to keep pushing. They have grit, they have persistence, they have tenacity. And people will say that I have determination, and it actually is in my top 3 of BP10. And I've experienced that the last few years. We've had a lot of things not quite go the way we would have expected, or we've had setbacks. And I just keep pushing because I believe in what we're doing. We're investing in a lot of people on campus, and we're getting good results. And so I just keep pushing, and I keep reinventing, and I keep making better. And it's just kind of what I do. People high in determination talent also are able to make decisions and act quickly. They'll confront obstacles. They feel like they can control their circumstances. Now, the downside of determination could be that they might stay on course too long. Maybe they need to pivot because they are so determined and they get locked in on, this is the way we're going to do it. So if you have high determination talent, you do need to be careful that you are kind of listening to perspectives, and if things change, you're adjusting and adapting accordingly. I would say, and I speak from personal experience here too, I think on this, when you have high determination talent, not everybody has that, and you can wear people out. I think I experienced this in my business that I had for 11 years. I had a retail business, and I along with determination, I had a high work ethic, so I could work crazy hours, and physical too, and mental. And I mean, I could just drive and push through. And I had to remind myself that not everybody could do that. Not everybody wanted to do that. Not everybody could function well working that much, that hard, that long. And so I could wear people out. So I had to be aware of that. That's important. And I think that's really what you're seeing throughout this whole semester is just awareness. Being aware of who you are. It's this course is an inside-out approach. Being aware of who you are, how you relate with others, who they are, how they relate with others, what's important to you, what's important to them. And now let's add other pieces. Let's add skills, knowledge, practice, experience, expertise, knowledge, those kinds of things. So, hope everything's going well, and we'll see you next time.